In honor of Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, BB&K brought together 3 generations of lawyers to discuss the legal industry then and now. We are pleased to share excerpts of that discussion with you.
Hi, my name is Anya Kwan, and I'm an associate at Best and Krieger. In honor of Asian American Pacific Islander Month, we will be interviewing Nowland Hong, who is of counsel at the firm. The interview will be conducted by Brian Bian, who is also of counsel at the firm. The purpose of this interview is to shine a light on Asian American culture in Southern California and how the practice of law has been impacted by the Asian American experience. Nowland, whose father was the first Chinese American lawyer in California, will share his experiences growing up near Los Angeles' new Chinatown and his journey to becoming a lawyer as a Chinese American. There is currently an exhibit curated by the Huntington Library that recognizes the Hong family and celebrates the history of New Chinatown, which was the first community in North America to be planned and owned by people of Chinese descent.
So Nowland, I was wondering if you could share with us some of your personal recollections of when you were a child and in connection with the development of Union Station in the late 1930s.
I was probably about 4 years old when this all started. And I remember my father having his law practice on Alameda Street in what was now called Old Chinatown. And in those days, all the Chinese businesses were along Alameda Street in what is now Union Station. But visiting my father in his office was always a big thrill.
What specifically do you recall about the development of Union Station?
Before New Chinatown was developed, my father, along with all of the other Chinese businesses, were located on Alameda Street. And it was a very, very congested area at that time. Due to a lot of politics over the congestion created by the railroads, the LA Times and other influential people pushed for having Old Chinatown as the location for the new station.
Do you have any recollections as a child of playing in Chinatown?
I have recollections of visiting my father's office. I recall climbing what seemed to me then a huge set of stairs up to his office and having the thrill of going with him to a Chinese restaurant in particular for lunch, which specialized in American roast pork of all things.
I understand your father, Nowland, was the first Chinese American to graduate law school from USC and the first Chinese American to pass the California bar exam. Did his practice influence your growing up as well?
As I grew up, my father was in those days a solo practitioner. There weren't many large law firms in the city at that point in time. He felt that the practice that he had, which was specializing in immigration law, wasn't something that was going to continue very effectively. So he never encouraged me to be a lawyer.
I wonder if you could talk about going to law school and what it was like being an Asian American in law school at the time when you were there.
When I started law school at USC, my class was composed mostly of older students who had come back from serving in the Army or armed forces. In those days, the law school had very, very few women and very few minority in the school as students. I was fortunate because I was invited to join the PAD law fraternity, which was a great place to meet people and have some assistance in taking classes. We had outlines which weren't available otherwise.
Nowland, you were one of the founding members of the Southern California Chinese Lawyers Association more than 50 years ago. Could you talk to us about what compelled you to establish that organization and how it also related to the Los Angeles County Bar Association and to other minority groups in the city?
When I started private practice, we found that the Los Angeles County Bar was not very open or accepting of minority lawyers. And so several of us who were of Chinese descent, we got together and decided we needed our own organization, not only just to get together, but to assist each other to the extent that we could.
So over your long and illustrious career, Nowland, I imagine you've seen a lot of how the practice of law has developed. Can you tell us what you think has changed for the better, has changed for the worse?
Law firms now have become so unbelievably large. When I was originally in private practice, a firm of maybe 30 lawyers was considered really very, very significant. And nowadays, of course, we know that there are many that are thousands of lawyers, not only locally, but offices nationally and worldwide. So the practice of law itself has really, really changed a great deal. Today, I think that there are some great opportunities. We've seen many more minority lawyers of all ethnicities become partners and major players in their law firms.
Asian Americans are having something of a moment right now. The rise in anti-Asian hate incidents and hate crimes across the country has reached alarming levels. I wonder if I could hear your thoughts about what's going on right now, but also historically, if you see any corollaries from your own life.
During the Second World War, due to the unfortunate conflict between the United States and Japan, my family lost many of their good Japanese friends. My father was the part of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance. In that period of time, the Alliance provided us all with buttons which said, I am Chinese American. And I remember that we would have to wear those buttons to make sure that we wouldn't be subjected to physical force or threats. This issue with discrimination has been something that is historic in our country, regrettably.
Nowland, thank you so much for your time today. For the last question, we're just hoping to hear some more about the exhibit at the Huntington and what you and your family donated to the archives there. My
father practiced law for a long period of time here in Los Angeles, and he had about 7,600 clients whose papers we retained over the years. And so we decided to donate all of my father's legal files to the Huntington Museum and Library, along with a large collection of books on Chinese architecture that my mother had collected as well, which was used in which to design New Chinatown. The archives have been a very, very successful collection for the Huntington, and many scholars have gone there to do research about social values using those archives.
Thank you for joining us and listening to Nowland's story. We encourage you to check out the exhibit titled Stories and Voices from LA Chinatown. There is a physical installation that can be visited in New Chinatown and a virtual exhibit that can be viewed online.
Stories and Voices from LA Chinatown, a collaboration between the Huntington Library, Art Museum and Botanical Gardens, the Library Foundation of Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles Public Library, can be viewed at exhibits.lapl.org/Chinatown.